You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
What is shaking? Business and Life Nation. Today I'm chatting with Tim Larkin. Tim is the founder and creator of Target Focus Training, the world leader in personal protection training. For more than 25 years, he has taught everyone from U.S. Navy SEALs to regular citizens how to survive unavoidable violent attacks. TFT has been talked about by prestigious journalists on ABC, CBS News, the UK's BBC, publications such as Financial Times of London, Forbes, and South China Post, endorsed by such notables as Tony Robbins and Glenn Beck, and seen on Good Morning America and the Katie Couric Show. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners something interesting about yourself, but also where are you calling in from today?
I'm based out of Las Vegas, so I'm in my home office in Las Vegas right now.
Okay.
Cool. But I'm a 30-year done everything from military law enforcement to high-end civilians to regular people over my career. Everything that I do has the assumption in my world that the threat that the person's going to face when it comes to their own self-protection is the person's going to be facing multiple attackers. Those attackers will be bigger, faster, and stronger, and those attackers will be carrying weapons. And so that's the kind of the world where I came from originally, and I've brought it to the civilian world the last 20 years now.
Oh, wow. So Target Focus Training is focused on self-defense. And who is generally your, let's say, target demographic? Who usually signs up for your training?
Usually it's a business owner with kids. They have disposable income. They have the income. They just don't have the time to train. So time is really precious to them.
Sure.
We do everything in high density formats. And so the goal is for me to minimize the chance of violence ever coming into their lives. That's what most people are concerned about. They're not concerned about, I used to think everybody wanted to, kind of be like me and become an instructor, a master instructor, do all this stuff and spend years and years training. But that's such a small group of people. I mean, I would say of everybody that we meet, 1 out of 1,000 will have the time and the tenacity to get through, say, instructor training. And there's no need. I mean, that's the other thing. The big fallacy is like a lot of people think you need to get to, say, a black belt level or instructor level before you're useful with this information. And that's just not the case. And that's kind of, that's kind of what we do. If you come to me, if your people don't know who I am, that's probably really good. 70% of my client base comes to me after the fact, after something's already happened to them.
Oh, really?
Only 30% are preventative. Yeah, it's typical. I mean, you have to understand, like, self-protection, self-defense is kind of like trying to get people to buy life insurance or, something that's easy for them to put off. Nobody wants to think about the subject, which I understand because it's a very daunting subject and it can be very intimidating. But just like anything else in life, if you face it head on and you actually learn about it, you realize it's really straightforward and pretty easy to understand.
So how long? Let's talk about the actual program, if you will, or the training process. What does that take? What does that look like?
From a seminar standpoint, I have tons of knowledge products, books, all that other stuff. There's
okay.
I'll share some of that, at the end if people are interested. But as far as the live training aspect of things, I do everything in 2-day formats. I've done everything from, military and law enforcement. I've done 30 days straight. I've done week-long courses, but for the civilian population, the majority of them don't have the ability to take off that kind of time. And so our goal is to give them a format. And the assumption is this: when I put this out to my instructors, the course that we're talking about, for somebody like yourself, you're like a perfect avatar for this. The premise of the course was, my instructors were like, well, we really can't teach anything in 2 days like what we do. What they meant was You can't teach somebody to do highly coordinated moves or anything that requires a lot of essential training after that. But when I reframed them and I told them, here's the deal. It's Friday. You find out that Monday morning, a loved one, you say whoever it is, your kid, your wife, your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, dad, they're going to face violence. They're going to face, what I outlined before, multiple attackers, bigger, faster, and stronger, carrying weapons. You're not going to be there to help them. They're going to have to deal with this on their own. You have Saturday and Sunday, approximately 8 hours each day to teach them. Knowing what you know, what would you teach them? And when I got that, I have 51 instructors, and everybody kind of put their ends on this. And
oh, wow.
And everybody that got everybody laser focused. And what happened was very good at giving immediately effective information. So the idea is anything I teach you during those 2 days, as far as the physical aspects of it, I want you to be able to use it Monday morning. You won't be perfect, but you'll understand. And most people within that format come away with information. I've had guys that have had, decades of martial arts, all sorts of stuff, but we really provide people, if you're worried about criminal violence and you're worried about violence coming into your life, we're really one of the few places where you can get a direct path to that type of information.
How long have you been in business?
I started in the military, started doing military training in 89.
Nice.
And then 93 was when I got out and we started doing, basically what you'd call like black water contract work. We were doing military contracting work prior to like the Blackwaters of the world and groups like that. I worked a lot in South America during that time, worked with a lot of corporations, also nice. Military law enforcement. And then after 9/11 was a seminal thing for me. I literally trained a bunch of international bankers 2 blocks from the towers, September 8th and 9th. I flew home on the 10th. On the 11th, it happened. And where we were training was completely wiped out. 3 of my guys were in one of the buildings. They all got out, but they lost friends. They did it. And that was the change in our country where my type of information was accepted by the civilians. Whereas before, and when I say civilians, I just mean anybody that's not military or law enforcement where you have to, be trained like this. Civilians, for the most part, prior to that, were very uncomfortable with the idea of having to injure somebody to save their lives and learn that type of information. After 9/11, it became very clear there are situations where that knowledge is invaluable, and also the knowledge of all the precursors to something like that, where you could get yourself out before anything happens. So that's where the knowledge base is. My goal with clients is I'm going to teach you the most direct methods to injure the human body to save your life. But by teaching you that, my real goal is behavior modification. I want people to, make better decisions in their life so they don't get to that point. Because most people end up a lot of times getting into a violent situation that when you talk to them, there were 2 or 3 times prior to the event happening where they had the ability to get themselves out. But
is it a lot of it logical? A lot of it.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is just understanding. We don't want to think there are people out there that will give these disproportional responses. And what do I mean? You have your typical back and forth, say, with a coworker. Coworker might be a little aggressive, might be kind of a jerk, but you get right back in his face, and you guys go, it's not actually a fight, it's an exchange.
Right.
Then you go out in the street with people you don't know, and you try to use that same communication style that works in the little hierarchy that you live in and work. Use it out on the street with somebody that doesn't play that game. And all of a sudden, you've just said something, and now this guy's just gone to kill. This guy's just gone from, he's not going to go verbal. He sees that as an insult on him, and you totally open the door for something that you didn't even think was a possibility because you thought you had some sort of an agreement, some sort of a social agreement, like, hey, we're just arguing here. We're not actually going to kill each other. A lot of other humans aren't like that. They see a threat and they will jump to what we would see as a disproportional response. And so my goal is to make sure that everybody understands that once you step outside your circles, and even within your circles, you should be a lot more, careful. But once you try to do stuff with a group of people that you don't know and you try to get aggressive, it can go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's really where my biggest thing, because most of the people I come in contact with are business owners. They're living great lives. They're successful people. The last thing they need is violence to come into their life. And what's really sad is I've got multiple cases of violence literally entering people like that's lives and literally upturning it in seconds. Violence happens. One of my books is called How to Survive the Most Critical 5 Seconds of Your Life, because that's literally how quickly violence can change your life.
Right. Right. No, I think it's the listeners, we talk about business, so we're going to get into your business here as well and some of your experiences as an entrepreneur. But I think that if you're able, there's some things you can't control. Right. And I think that's something that we're definitely tapping into here, right, Timothy, is just in terms of you don't know when it's coming, what's coming, but I talk about it a lot and I help with, in the business perspective, it's logical, but it's also kind of coincides with what you're saying, is that really, can you prepare and be more preventative? And it's crazy to me to think that 30% are preventative, but it does make sense, I guess, after you explained it, right, Timothy, that nobody wants to think about it, but life's about thinking about the hard stuff and the potentials and making sure that you're prepped for it. And if you can't control something, you should be prepared for it. And I think that's such a no-brainer. And I appreciate you kind of putting that out there. Give me a time where you felt in your entrepreneurship journey, Timothy, like where you felt you kind of hit rock bottom and were really kind of struggled to overcome some hurdles.
I stuck with, and this is probably like for a lot of people, I stuck with a partner far too long.
Yeah. That's common.
He was going in a direction that, he truly was. He was very, he's my original instructor and he was amazing. Problem was he was a self-educated guy, very intimidated, which I didn't realize till later, very intimidated by those that had more, schooling than him. And also maybe had more tactical knowledge, current tactical knowledge. He was a Vietnam era guy. What I didn't catch early on, because I was so focused on, and we can talk more about this with business owners, I was so focused on the mission and I was so focused on the message that we were sharing that I didn't pay attention to the business side of things as far as, hey, what's, the dynamics of this business, what's going on. What I saw was anybody competent that we were bringing in was slowly being replaced by a friend or family member who was not competent. And you see this all the time. This guy basically destroyed his own business by doing this. He also forgot we made our mark in the special operations community, specifically the SEAL teams originally. That's who he taught.
Okay.
And that's who I became, I got him into that. He then, once he got some success, and he was, all of a sudden outrageous money was being thrown at him by all these corporate groups. Because once somebody found out that you were training the special operations community, specifically training the SEAL teams and specifically training instructors to train other special operations people, all of a sudden your profile goes way up in that world. And all of a sudden you get opportunities that are really nice. But what he did was he forgot who gave him that opportunity. And it was basically the SEAL teams. And he started ignoring their needs to take contracts that were making a lot more money for him and not taking care of the guys that we actually built with. I tried to counteract that. I should have pulled out way earlier. And I didn't. And it cost me. And it was rock bottom for about, I had 30% of that company. And at the time we were doing about probably $7 million a year. And I walked with a $1,500 check.
Wow.
That he gave me because I had no power at that point. I was going through a divorce at the time.
Sure.
And so he knew and he took advantage of all of that. And then I literally, for my 30% of that company, I was handed $1,500 and basically, later, good luck.
Right.
Now I rebuilt from that.
Of course.
And obviously I'm far exceeding where my old business was with my old partner. But it was a really good learning lesson that I still had to learn a couple more times after.
Are you struggling to grow your business? Have you ever thought, man, I wish Mike could answer my specific questions about my business? Well, you're in luck, and I can help. Go to michaellevis.com and sign up to schedule a free live on-air call today. That's right. For a limited time, we're recording real business owners with real struggles. Well, yeah, I think those things are scary as hell, and my listeners will hear this a lot, but the mess becomes a message on so many levels, man. And I speak with people that sons and daughters have passed, and they create this business around it. And you talk about passion, right? But there's different kinds of passion. I don't believe you got to be extremely passionate about something to wake up and do it for a living. Sometimes I say keep that passion and keep it as your hobby, because once it becomes a passion, it becomes that you're doing it for a living, right? It becomes
exactly
a little bit of a job, right? But I mean, what you've done is, like you just mentioned, and I hope it inspires, because it inspires me and hopefully others to realize that, like, you're going to hit rock bottom. It's going to suck. You're going to go through a lot of shit. And at the end of the day, if you just stick with it and you take it as a learning experience, like Timothy did here, then you're going to rock, man. And it's so cliche sometimes to say, just don't give up. But half the time that we speak with hundreds of entrepreneurs out there, like that's it. You keep focused, keep doing your craft. You believe in a product or a service that you believe in, and it works and people need it, and you're helping them to become better, then it will work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Well, how are you currently planning, or how have you really tried to build a life that you want to live, Tim?
It's so funny. I really agree with your last statement about passion.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most misunderstood and overhyped term when it comes to business. I believe I forgot who said it, but I was listening to somebody recently, and his description to me was much better. He goes, you don't always start with passion. He said it's there. He goes, passion can grow though once you have success.
Sure.
And so a lot of people that, they would sit there and say, well, I never saw myself in this business, but they became really good at it, and it's very successful for them. And now they're passionate for it because it's there. So passion alone, like a lot of people, hey, I have a lot of people, hey, I'm really passionate about yoga. I'm going to do this. Okay, great.
Right.
What do what's different between this and then all these other products that are out there? And, oh, by the way, how are you going to get the message out? All these things that people, that if they only have passion, they're not going to want to do the work that it's going to take to get the message out and to do all that. I tell like my instructors love instructing. They absolutely love it. And that's like maybe 2% of the tip of the iceberg. They don't know that 95%.
The actual business. Yeah.
Yeah. The actual business, what it took to get those people into the seminar that they get to teach. They have no idea what that takes. And most people don't. And that's the work that nobody talks about. They don't talk about the passion for that. They do, but in groups like this, we do. But when you're thinking out, you're imagining this. You're imagining that whatever your angle is, whatever your approach is to the subject matter, that alone is going to be enough to have people just come. Like that. You build it and they'll come, and that's just wrong. I mean, probably the one thing that I would encourage everybody, and I might be jumping ahead here. I don't mean to be, but the most important thing you can learn on anything when it comes to your business is you need to become an excellent marketer. And you need to do it. And the reason you need to do it, and people at marketing sales has this, especially in my world, like, oh, it's so hypey, it's this, it's that. It was explained to me by a guy one day. He goes, this literally was a customer. He goes, hey, I got your stuff, but barely. And he goes, had I known what I was really buying, this is after he attended a course and everything, and he got in there. He goes, once I got your stuff, I understood what you had to offer, and I was, huge. But I just want to let you know, I had that $100, and there were 5 different groups that I was going to give it to. And I would up your game a little bit on your initial, because you weren't as convincing as you could have been to do that. And that really had me look and go, what do you so I started looking, and I go, oh, yeah, everybody sounds the same. Everybody's going to try to make the same claims. Everybody's going to, and you have to differentiate yourself. You have to really get out there. Yeah. And you got to really find out what are their concerns. I think I'll just give an example for this. And I would ask everybody that has business to do the same thing. I'm going to give you a self-defense thing, but it applies to everything. Yeah. the fallacy is in self-defense, everybody wants to, if you're a self-defense instructor, self-protection instructor, you think everybody wants to learn self-protection. They want to learn they want to be like you, and what you realize is people don't want that. I have a friend in the industry, a guy named Tony Blauer, and I think he, through a very aggravated conversation with somebody on a plane, came up with the best approach to where most people are. And in our world, he had a woman who sat next to him. It was a long flight. He had just got off of a seminar. He was exhausted, didn't really want to talk. And this woman asked him, "Oh, hey, what do you do?" And before thinking, he said, "Oh, I teach self-defense." And she said to him, and he could just tell, he goes, "Oh God," it just opened the door for her.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, I've always wanted to learn self-defense, blah, 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 blah." And she just litany of all these things of what she did. And he just stopped her cold. And he said to her, he goes, "No, you don't want to learn self-defense." And she goes, No, I really did." He goes, "No." He goes, "If you wanted to learn self-defense, you'd be like me." He goes, "You'd be immersed in this stuff. It would be everything that you want. And nothing could stop you if that's what you wanted." He goes, "What I think you are trying to say is, how do I live a life that minimizes the chance that I'd ever need self-defense? And I can help you with that." And to me, once I understood that systemic change, my whole business changed, because I wasn't going after the hardcore fighters. I was going after the people that really, they know they need something, but they're not sure. And they have this image that only the physically elite can learn this stuff.
Right.
And to me, the real challenge and the real focus and an increased customer base that, oh, by the way, in my world, most people aren't even going after, even though it's a very lucrative customer base. I never would have discovered that if I didn't actually find out what my customers really want versus what they say they want. They don't all, you have to go by actions, not necessarily words all the time. And that takes some really, really good research. It takes, you actually, I would suggest to everybody, if you haven't talked to your customers, literally talk to your customers on the phone in a while, that probably be the best use of your time. If you just gave yourself 45 minutes to an hour, just called a bunch of current people that have bought your product or haven't bought your product. Maybe they're an abandoned cart or something like that. Get them on the phone, talk to them. What was it? What was the decision to buy? What was the decision not to buy? And I think both answers will probably be super enlightening, because it's probably not what you think.
That was that. You're right. I mean, jumping ahead's fine, by the way. That was the last question to find out exactly what your advice was. And I appreciate that. I think that's fine. It's natural transition. You don't need me in between it. And I appreciate you jumping in and talking about really understanding what your client wants, and some of the learning processes that you went through, Timothy. For example, we all as entrepreneurs assume that we know what's best. And it's really either expensive and or a bad idea to ever assume anything without asking. Like, for example, your current customers, what am I doing great? What am I doing not so great? Right? Like, how do you just ask those simple? So many people don't do that because we're so worried about new customers, new acquisitions, new revenues. But when you start basing things off of customer experiences, and there's a time where I've been in my national travel company, I was even doing having bonus structured out to event planners based off of experience, not even money, not even margin, nothing to do with that. Just, were people happy or not? I'm going to pay you on happy faces, right? And that was like the survey, and that comes back, and that really comes back tenfold on people being excited and referring you. And you said something else too, where your whole demographic somewhat changed, where like your service, although still a service to the elite, let's say the elite, the fit, if you will, everyone's not elitely fit out there at all, right? And realistically, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
And so knowing that that's the case, realizing that you have a product that is great for the elite, and it's a great niche, but also from the large market standpoint, right, Timothy, you're trying to find, it sounds like most people want to just mitigate the risk. How do I mitigate the risk of being involved in something like that?
Yeah, and to let your listeners know too. I mean, the fact that I came from the special operations community and that's where we train, that is extremely important. I mean, that helped differentiate me. I mean, we created real courses that are government approved courses that are in there. We did a lot of things that basically became my marketing. You know, my military and law enforcement guys are my credentials and my bona fides, and that's why I still work in those markets. But most people in my world would rather, from an ego standpoint, would rather only train those groups. And it was interesting. It was an article that I read years ago with Chuck Norris, of all people. He was being interviewed. Chuck's he's an amazing business person, by the way. I mean, the guy just built a huge business off of stuff, real estate, everything. Very smart guy. But he was talking specifically about when he had his training centers. And he said, I only wanted fighters. And then he quickly realized two things. One, the fighters are probably your worst customers because most of them don't have money. They expect things for free. Yeah. And if they come at the wrong time, they can actually scare the crap out of your paying customers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I bet.
Because they're not in it. So what he did was, and then he realized also, he goes, the biggest impact I can make are people that don't think they can fight, that need self-protection. And so Chuck totally switched to make it more accommodating for those types to attend. And he made sure the fighters had their times, but the paying customers, that's what he differentiated it, real paying customers. He made sure they had a hell of an experience and got exactly what they needed out of it. That's what got me thinking. I was going, I hear a lot of, and if I make it okay for somebody to say, hey, I just want to learn how to not have to use this information. And if I don't humiliate them or tell them that somehow they're less than, well, now you've got a customer who's really open, and they're also going to be very surprised that they're able to do a lot more physically than they think. But you have to allow them to start where they're at. I mean, that's just it. I could overload, like if you ask me about self-protection, I could overload you with a bunch of information where I sound great. You go, wow, this guy really knows this stuff, but I have no idea where to start. Right. That's terrible when you do that. You have to make your customer feel comfortable, and you have to also address their needs. And in the self-defense world, our world, oftentimes it's guru-based, and we often don't ask our customers any questions. We just say,
allow them to open up organically.
Here's the training. Awesome. This is what you get. This is what you're doing, and I had a guy who came to me because he went to another combat sport practitioner, and he said, hey, I've got a serious threat that I have to worry about in the next 6 months here. And I really need to learn some, self-protection. And this guy said, okay, well, in about a year or so, I'll have you up to a space where, you might be able to use some of this information. And I understood what he was saying. Yeah. But you can't, if your customer comes to you with a question like that, you have to be able to address it right away and give them, like I told you about our course, whatever I give people originally is effective, meaning it doesn't require advanced coordination. It's all stuff that you can easily do. Because once I know you know how to take care of yourself, now if you come back to me for more training, I can work on your coordination. I can make you smoother. But I want to make you effective first. The worst thing I could ever do to you is teach you a really cool looking move or some really advanced trainings that make me look good, make me look really smart. You maybe not so much because you don't have the same coordination. I've been doing it for 20, 25 years at this level. So I've got this thing where the worst thing I think a client could ever say is talk about how great I am. Oh my God, Tim does this so good. He does that so good. Or any of my instructors. What I want them to come away with is, geez, I showed up Saturday morning and I knew next to nothing. I walked away Sunday. I can't believe what I've learned. And I can't believe how freaking lucky I've been because of some of the stupid risks I've been taking that I didn't even know I was taking.
Yeah, the customer definitely needs to be the winner, right? That definitely makes sense.
And I'm in a business, and I don't know if how many of your other folks might be in a business like mine. Mine is heavy guru, and I really do the anti-guru thing. I'm not. Your own self-protection to me is way too important. I'm not going to be there for you when it happens, and therefore I got to make sure you're comfortable with this information. And is this information, I might think I have the greatest stuff in the world. If it doesn't resonate with you, it's going to be absolutely useless to you. So I got to make sure, hey, can I help you? I don't even know if I can help you yet, you know?
Tim, where can people find you?
The easiest place, well, if they go to surviveviolence.com, that's just easy. They go, okay. they get a free book. There's no,
nice. Okay.
No if, answer, but you can easily learn more about us, that way. The company's called Target Focus Training. There's a website, targetfocustraining.com, or if you Google Tim Larkin, you'll unfortunately see tons of stuff about me.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone's going to hopefully do that and take a look at it, and definitely go get that free book. It'll also be in the show notes. Tim, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate sharing the message.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Liebus, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.